Jim Harbaugh is that ex that that's very, very difficult to get rid of. And in this case, it's a good thing because we moved to 9-1. It's a good season for Michigan. At this point, I had us at 8-2 with no chance of winning the Big Ten, and yet here we are. You know, it's that ex that just keeps coming back, and you take them back because you just really care about them. You really wanted them to do well, and you want to succeed together and just be good together. But they continue to let you down over and over again, and you're just hoping, praying that for the first time in forever, they will finally be that person that they say they're going to be. So for now, I'm not apologizing to Jim Harbaugh. Nope, he doesn't get it yet. But man, I'm telling you, that was a pretty good win this week, especially when I go over some of the things that I'm going to go over. It was a huge win for Michigan. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. As long as we beat Maryland and Michigan State loses to Ohio State for the third time in 7 years in the Jim Harbaugh era, as bad as I've been to him, as bad as some haters have been on him, he has put us in a position for the third time in 7 seasons to beat Ohio State and make it to the Big Ten championship game and potentially make it to the college football playoffs. That is very difficult to do, and I will give him that. I just wish that we could get over the hump. Will this be the season? The fact of the matter is, he loves his team, and his team definitely responds to and loves him. He may not be the biggest motivator, the best motivator, but they definitely love him. If you have not watched the locker room speech after the Penn State win, you need to go and see it. It's clear and apparent that this team is just fired up. They're ready to go. They are ready to face adversity. They lost that one time against Michigan State. They did not handle that adversity well, but all season long outside of that, they have. And I actually feel confident for once that they can continue to do so. Yes, even against the mighty Buckeyes in Ohio State. And on top of that speech, if you look at Erick All after the game, post-game, he kept saying, "I love you, coach. I love you, coach. I love you, coach." He said it and he meant it, man. It just speaks volumes. I personally think this is one of Jim Harbaugh's, if not his very favorite team that he has coached up to this point, for the simple fact that I've said it before, these guys aren't your ultra 5-stars. They're a bunch of more 4-stars than anything else, and they just play harder, and they play for the team, and they buy into the system, and that is something that I have not seen in recent years with all the ego on the team. That's just from my point of view, my perspective. I haven't seen this kind of fight and this kind of resiliency in quite some time. Let's talk about the Penn State crowd. I was obviously at the game, had a blast at the game, and man, oh man, it was the experience that I hoped for. Now, we kind of went there when we bought the tickets. We thought we were going to get to go to a night game, a night experience, possibly a whiteout. It was going to be a great, great time. And it still was, but we didn't get that kind of night game experience. I'm kind of glad we didn't. This boy's from South Carolina. It was like 37 degrees, very windy, mountain air, things that I'm not used to, okay? So I couldn't handle it. My toes were freezing to the core by the time this game was over. But yeah, the Penn State crowd, I've heard a lot of people say that they're obnoxious, they're mean, they're rude. Not from my perspective. They were very nice. They were very accommodating. I had plenty of people, even after the game, even after a loss, say, "Hey man, like, I hope you enjoyed your time here. I hope the experience was everything that you hoped it was." And these are people that I barely even knew. I just kind of sat around during the game and talked to slightly. They were jawing at me a little bit during the game. I was jawing at them, but it's exactly what you guys know I like to do. Just have fun, talk sports, but at the end of the day, shake each other's hands and say, "Hey, good game. Great game," and that's called sportsmanship, win or lose, no matter what happened. But I had an excellent time. It probably would have been louder, a little bit louder at the stadium if Penn State was, had a better record and had a little bit more to play for, but it was still plenty loud. It was very difficult to hear. I'm just miles and miles impressed with Michigan's offense, how they responded to that noise. It was very difficult for me to hear even in the stands. I can't imagine what it was actually like there on the field. And the Penn State defense, speaking of resiliency, speaking of having to overcome so much, that Penn State defense was as good as advertised. Listen, these wins against Wisconsin and against Penn State, now you're looking at a Wisconsin team that's 7-3 and firing on all cylinders. They're a very good defensive football team, and Penn State is a very good defensive football team. They did not make life easy. At the end of the day, you're going to see Hassan Haskins have 31 carries for 156 yards. You're going to see him average 5 yards per carry. All of that is good and well, but man, he had to earn every single one. When we went for for it on 4th and 2 in the first half. There was, let me check, I put it down, 1:35 left in the first half. Michigan at that point, I looked at the scoreboard right before that play because I wanted to know what we should do in that situation, run or pass. We had 31 rushing yards at that point. 31. So Penn State really was persistent against the run and great against the run. They just wore down over time, and we'll speak more about that here shortly. But yeah, they were excellent. Against the run, they kept all of our receivers in front of them. They did not let anybody behind them. They did the same kind of thing against Ohio State. Very rarely did Ohio State get behind them. When they did, they made them pay. Michigan, outside of that Erick All touchdown, it was hard, difficult, tough picking, and we're going to get into it. Cade McNamara earned every little bit, and Cade McNamara did Cade McNamara things. Michigan had to earn this victory in a very resilient way. And about that play call, yeah, I'm going to have to say it, man. This will be one of the negative things I got to say about this game. It was a terrible play call. I don't understand why we continue to just run the ball in that scenario. I think that sometimes we get it on 3rd down and 4th down, and that makes us more confident to do it again later on in the game. At that point, I watched somebody sneak in. There were 9 people in the box. We should just not have run it. I know you got Hassan Haskins, and you see him as a motor guy that keeps his legs churning, but he can only do but so much. You can't. It's tough to pick up 2 yards in that scenario, especially when at that point you had 31 yards. I don't mind going for it to an extent, but that's not the play call at that moment in time. You do that maybe in the second half when you have wore the defense down and they have proven that they cannot stop that run at that moment. But again, that's one of the few negatives I'm going to talk about. Now, Cade McNamara, poised as always. This is the guy I'm now comparing him to. I've done it a couple times in the past, but this is the guy I'm comparing him to from here on out. He is Jake Rudock 2.0. Jake Rudock was not flashy, didn't get a lot, wasn't going to give you the huge numbers most of the time unless you're playing Michigan State's scrub secondary, but just like Jake Rudock, Cade McNamara is not going to put up those flashy numbers. But you know what he's also not going to do? He's not going to turn the ball over. He's going to efficiently move it across, and he's going to be mostly efficient. In this one, he was 19 for 29, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Great job, Cade McNamara. Man, he was rushed a lot. That Penn State front 7 is something serious. Had him running for his life a lot of the game, and he earned every little bit, and he's just gritty, man. That's just who he is. Cade McNamara is. I'm really coming around to Cade McNamara, man. I don't know how he's going to play against Ohio State or even Maryland, but for now, I really am coming around to Cade McNamara. J.J. McCarthy did not see a snap in this game, and probably rightfully so after what happened against Michigan State. I think we're starting to realize that we just need to go ahead and keep the wheels turning here with Cade, and I'm all for it at this point. He's got all the experience in the world, and he's taking care of the football. Roman Wilson, clutch in the red zone. 2 touchdown catches today on 2 excellent routes, but you know what you got to do in that scenario? You got to finish with the catch in traffic sometimes, and Roman Wilson did it both times. Big, huge, excellent to have him back. He was back against Indiana last week, and we needed him in a big way. He was a big reason why our red zone offense was efficient this time around. 21 points, 14 of those inside the red zone. We converted for touchdowns both times we had the opportunity to do so. And it was huge, gigantic. We absolutely needed it. When you got these taller receivers and stuff like that, a lot of the tension's on them. That leaves a guy like Roman Wilson able to get the little slant routes, quick routes, post route, skinny post, all that stuff in those scenarios, and he and Cade McNamara took advantage of it. On top of that, I will say, Hassan Haskins, we talked about him earlier, Cornelius Johnson, man, there were so many times players like them, or I think there was another instance where it looked like we were going to get the first down or set ourselves up well for 3rd down, and they broke tackles, spun off of tackles, got that extra yardage. I saw Free Economist in the comment section, he said he likes Hassan Haskins. Him and I have had a debate throughout the season. He likes Haskins over Corum. I like Corum over Haskins, but regardless, it's what I've said all year, and I think he does agree with this, is we need a guy to carry the ball the bulk of the time, get them in a rhythm. As a running back, as somebody who's played that position growing up, you got to get in a rhythm. You got to be able to see the holes better, and you start to develop that throughout the game. And that's exactly what happened here for Hassan Haskins, who didn't have Corum to help him, and it's a big reason why he had 156 yards outside of his offensive line, absolutely brutalizing Penn State's defensive line in the second half. But yeah, it is so demoralizing for the defense, for people like Hassan Haskins to keep the legs churning and get those extra 2 2, 3 yards over and over again. All of a sudden, you start to get cornerbacks squeezing in because they want to try to help because they're getting frustrated that their front seven can't get that tackle, can't drive through the tackle and stop them at the point of contact. Then, as the cornerbacks start to come in, all of a sudden, Hassan Haskins, and you saw it multiple times, he'd bounce it outside, Kenneth Walker style, and get that extra yardage, get those big first downs, especially on that last possession of the game that we needed in order to hold on to and not give Penn State another opportunity. So yeah, I mean, Haskins played great. And, when I say Corum's better than Haskins, in my opinion, it's 1A and 1B. It's like by that much. So I really don't care who gets the bulk of the carries moving forward once Corum's healthy. I just want somebody to get the bulk of the carries. I don't want them to split too close to each other. All right, let's get into the defense. Junior Colson with 12 tackles in this one. Josh Ross with 11. Man, the linebacking core was just excellent. They were excellent. They did something that they haven't done most of the season, which is got out there to the flats on passes. There were some times where Penn State got loose on those, but for the most part, they were quick enough to get out there, and that's kind of not been their MO throughout the season. They've had a tough time guarding the flats and getting out to ball carriers on the exterior. But Josh Ross on this one, there was one play where, the running back was loose. He looked like he was going to get the corner and get a lot of yardage, and Josh Ross, he kind of stripped down and made the tackle. Solid tackle in open space. I thought whenever I first saw it, I thought that was Daxton Hill. I was like, man, Daxton Hill looks bigger in person, I guess, because I didn't know that Josh Ross could look like he was shot out of cannon in that opportunity, but he did. Aiden Hutchinson, we all know about how him and Ojabo did. 7 tackles for Hutchinson, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for Ojabo, 2 sacks. We're going to get into it later. They are the great equalizer against Ohio State, but let's talk about that shortly. Secondary coverage and front 7 made life so extremely hard for Penn State's offense, especially Sean Clifford. Penn State had 86 total plays in this game. 86 plays, 44 passes, 42 runs, yet they only had 17 points. They only had 17 points and they had just over 300 total yards. I mean, that's outstanding. That's outstanding to go against that many plays. They were we were kind of bend don't break it away, but for the most part, we did what Penn State's defense did, which is really put a lot of pressure away, even more so than they did. Put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. Sean Clifford, I don't know how he kept getting up, man. Some of the hits he took were just brutal. Legal, but brutal. I got all the respect in the world for him. He didn't have the greatest of days. 23 for 43, not very efficient, almost at the 50% mark, 4.8 yards per completion. So we did not give up much after the catch. We did not give a lot up downfield, and a lot of their completions, out of those 23 completions, were screen passes, slants, things that were, you can complete them all day, but as long as we keep them in front of us, we're fine. He only had 205 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Parker Washington had 4 receptions for 92 yards, so some of his catches he got loose on. A lot of them were up the middle of the field, but Jahan Dotson, that was the big story. Could we stop Jahan Dotson? Because I'll tell you what, Don Brown defenses in the past, nope, not happening. No way we stop Jahan Dotson or a guy like him. We did not have any issues with him. 9 receptions for just 61 yards. That's only 6.8 yards per reception. So you can't let Jahan Dotson beat you in this scenario, and Michigan did not. This secondary, I said they were one of our weaknesses going into the season, and I didn't say they were a big weakness. I just said out of the whole team as a whole, they were one of our weaknesses. Them and the offensive line, they definitely were not in this scenario, and really all season long. DJ Turner's been excellent. Vincent Gray, with all his experience, has been excellent. Brad Hawkins has been excellent, and Daxton Hill is Daxton Hill. I mean, they've been pretty good. I feel pretty confident even against Maryland's passing attack, and even in a way against Ohio State's passing attack. Now, some of these secondary guys, they're in position. They need to learn how to make better plays on the ball, but because Ohio State's receivers are going to make you pay, even if you're in position, and it's not going to work, you got to learn how to make plays on the ball, but hopefully from now till then, we can get there and see what kind of game we can make of that. On the ground, Penn State had just 42 carries for 109 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. I'm not going to say too much about that. They've been bad against pretty much all the teams they played this season. For all the things Penn State does well, that has been the issue. That has been the reason why they have 4 losses this season. They have not been able to establish a run game, and it has really messed up play calling as a whole. There were a lot of question marks, head scratchers on Penn State's side on when things were being called, why they were being called. I didn't understand it. I can understand Penn State's fans and their frustration with James Franklin at times and his staff, because there were just a lot of question marks. I felt like they should should, be throwing the ball downfield. Now, to an extent, I mean, Michigan's defense got so much pressure on Clifford that they really couldn't do a lot of that. But a lot of times the middle of the field was open, and if I'm a Penn State fan, I would have liked to have seen Clifford and company attack the middle of the field more. They settled a lot for outside passes, hard to complete passes, especially when under duress and under pressure. So I don't know about the play calling if I'm a Penn State fan. But yeah, so here we are now. Michigan State versus Ohio State. Guys, like it or not, if you're a Michigan fan, it's go Buckeyes this week. I'm sorry, it just is. We need them to win, okay? We can't necessarily count on Penn State beating Michigan State the last week of the season. We need the Buckeyes to win so that next week, after this one, it's Michigan versus Ohio State for all the marbles, the way it should be, the game for everything on the line. And like I said, great equalizers. The fact that Cade McNamara takes care of the football, the offense in general takes care of the football. We haven't had many interceptions, haven't had many fumbles this season. We have to be among the leaders in the nation as far as that's concerned in terms of turnovers on offense. So that's an equalizer. And then David Ajabo and Hutchinson, Ohio State's offensive line, while good at times, has shown some weaknesses. Those two guys, two of the best in the nation, coming out on the edges. Man, oh man, it's going to make life difficult for C.J. Stroud in a way. So we're going to see what happens. As long as the secondary can keep their guys in front of them, we can get pressure on C.J. Stroud. A lot can happen in that game. I'm more confident now than I've ever been. More confident than I've been since 2018, but we saw what happened in 2018, so God, that is not a good omen. That is not a good omen that the helmet fell just as I'm talking about the Ohio State game. All right, well, knock on wood, go blue. I don't know what else to say. What the heck happened there? Come on. We got to win this year. Beat Ohio State, and I will apologize to Jim Harbaugh. 100%. He would have earned it. See you guys next time. Thanks again for the atmosphere, Penn State. It was real. It was fun. Thanks to the Penn State fans here on this channel. God bless.